Welcome once again to another episode of Vinny Makes the Hall of Fame Case for ... And I really like the choice, Vinny, that you made. You're really going truly international and kind of representational of what's going on in the world. Tell everyone who you picked and why.
I decided to pick the grandfather of Lithuanian basketball himself, Frank Lubin, or as he's called over in Lithuania, Pranas Lubinas.
That's what she said. But yeah, no, this is a really good one. We all know what's sort of going on with Russia and Ukraine. And when you initially pitched that one to me, I thought this was actually a different, I wasn't really I didn't think I understood this properly. I knew that basketball was huge in Lithuania, and I was very familiar with the story of the 1992 Olympic team that Bill Walton actually played a bit of a part of, and sing with the Grateful Dead, as you may know.
Yes, I do.
From the story there. So I thought he actually had something to do with that. So boy, was I wrong. So this is a really interesting case, not just as a player, but a true international representation. Was he on that international list? Do we know?
No, from my understanding, he never has been. But in my opinion, I think, and if you're talking about just international contributors, and when I say contributor, I don't just mean as a player, in terms of someone who has contributed massively to the sport, I think Lubin should definitely be there without a shadow of a doubt. Because now I want to ask you this, Kirk.
Sure.
How massive is hockey over in there in Canada? You know.
How massive is hockey in Canada? It's everything. It's everything, so much to the point where it's a national disaster if Canada loses an international game to somebody they shouldn't. That's front page news.
Yeah. That doesn't come close to how basketball is viewed in Lithuania. Yes, its population is only under 3 million.
I doubt that, but continue.
Are you sure about that? I don't think.
No, I'm not sure. I've never been to Lithuania.
Yeah, but I don't think 90% of people in Canada play hockey, because that's what they do in Lithuania.
90% of people in Lithuania play hockey?
No, 90% of people in Lithuania play basketball.
They play it.
They played it, at least in some point or form.
At some point in their lives? I'm sure it's something pretty sick like that in hockey here. But anyway, continue.
Well, I'm saying because, like, although hockey is so synonymous with Canada, for instance, that doesn't even come close to how basketball is viewed in Lithuania. No joke. They are so devoted to the sport that if you're paralyzed or you're someone who has some issues with your body or whatever, you play wheelchair basketball. That's the most popular Paralympic sport over there. Okay. Yeah, they may not have won a championship, but it is so massive that it's viewed as like the central hub for Eastern European basketball. It's all centered in Lithuania.
Okay, so Lubin is actually already a Hall of Famer, I noticed, in the UCLA Hall of Fame. So let's talk about what he was as a player.
Well, he was a really, really good player. He played for 4 years from 1928 to 1931, and he was All Pacific Coast Conference when he was a senior with them. And and he was a really, really quality player for the Bruins. He was a center for them. And then after he decided to represent his college, he decided to work for the national team, actually as a stagehand for the film studio 20th Century Fox, now known as 20th Century Studios, following Disney's acquisition. Yes, I'm even mentioning movie studios in this Hall of Fame case.
And he was an Olympian too, was he not?
Yes, he was. He actually won the 1936 gold as a member of the U.S. national team in Berlin, which is he is an Olympian too, so that's another big deal
The
as
gold
well.
medalist. And so,
Mhm.
what point did he find himself in Lithuania? Like, how did that come to be?
Well, you see, his both his parents are Lithuanian immigrants.
But he grew up in the U.S., right?
He grew up in the U.S. What happened was that during the Olympics, afterwards, he was invited to come to Lithuania, and they said, "Hey, we really liked how well you did in, the gold for the U.S." Because basketball, I mean, basketball was played over there, but it was never as big as it could be. I mean, it's mostly women that were playing it actually. They said, "Hey, why don't you become our head coach?" And he said, "Sure." And so they became a part of FIBA. And as the head coach of the Lithuanian team, they won the Eurobasket title in 1937. Now, granted, it was mostly with American-born players of Lithuanian descent, but he was the head coach of the team, and they won the Eurobasket.
Mhm.
He was a player coach for it too, and he was not only their head coach but their best player, which is pretty big. Then, it got so popular that they decided to host it in 1939, and they won it again. And he was basically the MVP of Eurobasket, but they couldn't win the award because there was a law at that time that said that if you were taller than 6'3", FIBA said you were ineligible to receive the MVP honors. But he was by far the most valuable player on that
So
team.
you couldn't have been the MVP in Lithuania in 1939, is what you're telling me. I could, but you couldn't.
Yes, it's absurd to think of, but that actually was a rule back then. Was it stupid? Absolutely.
There used to be a league, I remember, one of these minor leagues that was like for players under 6'5". That always made me laugh.
That's under 6'5".
Yeah,
Putting people under 6 feet like they're midgets.
well, even under 6'5". So I mean, even that was sort of comical in itself that actually existed.
Like thinking that there's a rule like if you're 6'3" and below, like he was tall, he was 6'7", like he was the center of the team.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would hope so. 6'7" back then, yeah.
That's huge. I mean, obviously it's not like Robert Wadlow numbers, but it's still pretty tall.
Oh wow, that's a I actually knew who you were referring to. Guinness World Book of Records. Yes, very good.
8 foot 11 inches, and I know that because my cousin works for Ripley's in South Carolina.
Nice. So he stayed there for, not, I guess, really developing the first wave of Lithuanian talent.
Yeah, like he got these sports so basketball crazy, and he was also the coach of the women's team right afterwards. But something else happened in 1939.
Yeah,
World
I
War
kind of
II
heard.
happened.
Yes.
World War II happened.
Now, did he stay in Lithuania during World War II?
No, actually, he didn't.
Where did he go?
Nazi Germany was coming right towards Lithuania, and the way that happened is that the Italian officials had to help the Lithuanian team go back and avoid Germany. So he realized that he could not stay in Lithuania as much as he loved the team over there, as much dedication he had. He knew that he could not be a part of it because he did not want to risk his life. So he decided to go back to America, to California with his family, because he knew that the Soviets would be involved. And guess what? Not only bad for Lithuania, the Soviets actually invaded Lithuania at that time.
Did he go back?
No, I don't think he ever did come back. From everything
wow.
I've seen, he did not come back. In fact, he played for the team organized by 20th Century Fox until 1955. And that was because of knee injuries. Yeah. Bring back to that studio again.
So Lithuania, is he revered there? Like, is there like a Hall of Fame, or is there something in his honor?
From my understanding, I don't think there is a Hall of Fame in general, but he is so revered over there.
Mm-hmm.
He is literally called the grandfather of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
He is the reason why it's so basketball crazy. In fact, after the Soviets invaded the country, the national basketball team that was always rivals with the US Who were they mostly made up of? Lithuanian players. Almost
Mhm.
all the talent came from Lithuania.
So like
So
a lot of those really good Soviet teams that eventually could rival those top American U.S. college teams. So you're saying a lot of them were Lithuanians.
the majority of them were from
Okay, I didn't know
Lithuania.
that. All right, that's interesting
Mhm.
to know.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, no, this is actually a really good outside of the box candidate, and the international committee. I can't see why he wouldn't be a good choice. I'm surprised to learn that he wasn't even on that preliminary list. That's very surprising to me.
Considering his impact, like the reason why I tied this into the story that's going on now is because Russia is invading Ukraine. And I
Hmm.
thought about this and said, the people are saying that they want to try to take, Moldova and the Baltics, and Lithuania is part of the Baltics. And I'm like saying, man, Lithuania was the biggest contribution for those Soviet teams for basketball. And Lubin is the reason why they became so basketball crazy, and they're still basketball crazy to this very, very day. Like they have their own league there too, and everything. It's something that I wish Naismith would honor more, and I have confidence that he could eventually make it.
You could.
I do trust them because I do like the way they view the international game. That Lithuania is also the eighth ranked team in the entire world.
Right
Um,
now?
yeah, the Lithuania's men's basketball team is the eighth ranked team in the entire world.
Okay. That's pretty good. I mean, international basketball has come a long, long way. When I go back to thinking of that 1992 Dream Team, that even if you weren't alive back then, Vincenzo, but that was a pretty big deal. But not only that, I mean, yes, the United States drubbed the shit out of everybody, but it also forced everyone to get better.
Yes.
And when the United States enters an international tournament, even if they're loaded with the best talent they have, it's not a given that they're going to win. I mean, that's how things have changed. And it's people like Lubin and people just embracing a sport to do that internationally. I can't imagine where basketball would be internationally if the dream team of 92 didn't exist. I know that's sort of a segue off of what this topic is, but I do think that it's very, very important.
You're just thinking about how much, you know, to think about how much Lubin meant to that country and to
Mhm.
the sport is honestly incredible. Like just thinking of how, in fact, basketball is so big because of what Lubin did for that country that it is literally devoted so much that people even equate it to that of a religion. That is how massive it is over there. It's
Fair
easy
enough.
for us to just say that, hockey is big in Canada, but I don't know if they view it like a religion. I
Uh,
mean, some do,
okay.
but
Yes. Yes. Yes.
it,
Very much so. Although my dad, if he was here, he'd disagree. He does not care about any sports at all. That's a really so great one that you brought up. I know what you're going to do for us for next time. Now I'm just going to do some shameless plugs as I sort of fade out. Hey, I wrote a book. Check that out. Chavo Guerrero Instant Classic. You can get that on Amazon.com. That's about the late great Chavo Guerrero Sr. I helped him write that. Pretty soon, the next episode of how the hell did this go #1 will be up. We looked at M's pop music not that long ago, and we just looked at Every Rose Has Its Thorn. So these are 2 new episodes coming up. We're on This crap was on national television. Pretty soon, the last episode of the Beachcombers is up, where you can look at the biggest show that we ever did in Canada, the Beachcombers, a strange show, kind of, and a show that only really worked there. But we also looked at That 80s Show. That's going to be coming up soon. And Evan Nolan and I, we have a regular program where we look at Hall of Fame related news. With that, wherever you are, wherever you may be, stay safe, everyone.